Hi, welcome to Prime Recap. After Superman's defeat, the last living heroes must reunite to defeat the Steppenwolf, an alien warrior who intends to declare war against all races and destroy planet Earth. Today we will recap the story of the 2017 film Justice League. After Clark Kent's defeat in the events of Batman vs. Superman, Bruce Wayne continues his role as Gotham's vigilante. However, when new alien beings invade the city sniffing out people's fear, the Batman decides to cause a bandit's dread in order to attract the humanoid creatures. As soon as a creepy villain appears, Batman jumps on top of it and they fly off into the city, but as they pass near a high-frequency transmitter, the winged creature starts to get dizzy and falls onto the roof of another building. In this place, Batman gets into a brief body fight with the enemy and manages to trap the insect in the wall with a restraining net, until suddenly, something in the body of the alien begins to glow and it explodes right away, leaving the mark of 3 cubes on the wall behind him. As soon as he sees the geometric figures, Bruce asks Alfred for his opinion, and the butler says that the same drawings were also in Lex Luthor's notes. In other words, this has something to do with the end of Superman. At the same time, in the city of Metropolis, a group of armed criminals invade a large tourist building, eliminating the security guards and leaving everyone at gunpoint. As soon as she notices the movement, Wonder Woman enters the building and decides to use her lasso of truth on one of the bad guys, who reveals he is part of a criminal group that intends to cleanse humanity of sin by blowing up everything nearby. In the main lobby, the leader of the criminals opens a suitcase full of explosives and activates the timer, setting the bomb to detonate in the next 20 seconds. At that moment, Diana arrives bursting through the door and the criminals start shooting at her, but Wonder Woman manages to dodge the projectiles quite easily, eliminating the bad guys and throwing the suitcase out of the building before it explodes. Still, the leader of the criminals does not give up and unlocks his gun, ready to fire into the crowd, but Diana manages to get back in time and rebounds all the projectiles with her submission bracelets, eliminating the criminal with a single punch. In the far north, Bruce hears reports of a man who can talk to fish and help the local people from starving, and since he is in need of fighters for the coming war, he offers $25,000 to the people of the village if they let him talk to this warrior, but they pretend they know nothing about it. At this moment, one of the citizens starts coughing and bends down, revealing drawings on the wall where you can see one of those protected cubes on the bottom of the sea. As soon as he sees the images, Bruce offers $30,000 for the information about the boxes and one of the villagers orders him to leave, but already knowing that this man is Aquaman, Bruce decides to provoke him, asking him to tell him where Atlantis is. Thinking that he wants to do some harm to his people, the fish man throws the outsider against the wall and begins to intimidate him, but Bruce remains calm and calls Aquaman by his real name, Arthur Curry. With that, the protector of Atlantis realizes that he is not talking to just anyone and decides to listen to the man. But even after listening to the whole story calmly, Aquaman refuses the offer, saying that he wants to be left alone and that he works better alone. He then takes off his clothes and enters the water while Bruce asks about the boxes, but Arthur says that this is a thing of the past and sets off toward the open sea. After the failure to recruit Aquaman, Batman returns to his base and talks to Alfred about what these boxes might be, but without knowing what they are, all he can do is keep trying to form a team. To do this, Alfred checks Lex Luthor's list of threats and finds 2 young men. The first is named Barry Allen, a young man who has no relatives or fixed abode, but who often visits his father in prison, who was accused of taking the life of his own wife when his son was still small. Knowing this, Bruce waits for the young man to visit him and asks one of the penitentiary employees to provide him with Barry's information, thus obtaining his location. The other young man is named Victor Stone, a super genius and former soccer player who was involved in a car accident where he was declared deceased, but thanks to his father's knowledge, continues to wander around as a sort of cybernetic ghost. After the accident in which his son lost more than 90% of his body, scientist Silas Stone tried to use an alien artifact called the Mother Box to make Victor's tissues reconstruct themselves. But something went wrong during the process and the young man was transformed into a cyborg, with only parts of his face still being that of an ordinary human. Thanks to his cybernetic metamorphosis, Victor now has the power to control any kind of technology, and the ability to be always connected to the internet, further increasing his knowledge and enabling him to track anyone on the networks, which allows him to find out about the dossiers that Alfred is putting together. Meanwhile, on the island of Themyscira, home of the Amazons, Queen Hippolyta and her group of warrior women see that the Mother Box is awakening and prepare for combat, already imagining that some hidden force is behind it. But when the great Steppenwolf appears inside the sanctuary along with an army of insectrones, the group of sentries is easily defeated, forcing the monarch to flee with the Mother Box while she waits for reinforcements. As soon as she leaves the sanctuary, Hippolyta gets on her horse and gallops away while Darkseid's herald chases her, eliminating all the Amazons that get in his way. During the fight, one of the winged creatures manages to grab the box from one of the women and ends up knocking the object to the ground, causing its protective seal to break. To prevent the enemy from taking the cube, one of the warriors jumps off her horse, hooks an arrow in the box, and fires it in the direction of her sisters, but still, the Steppenwolf manages to reach them and knock the queen out, finally taking the cube and inviting Hippolyta to serve him. Refusing to do so, the daughter of Ares draws her bow and shoots at the enemy, who manages to deflect the arrow without much effort, but when he sees that a huge crowd of Amazons is approaching to help the queen, the wolf decides to retreat, opening a portal and returning to his world along with the mother box. As soon as the enemy leaves, Hippolyta decides that she will light the ancient warning fire, and one of her sisters argues that it has been more than 5,000 years since the last time, so humans will not understand the signal, but the queen replies that she does not intend to warn men, but Diana. In this way, she goes to the center of Themyscira and fires an arrow of fire that rips through the heavens, falling on the temple of the Amazons and starting a huge fire that is televised all over the world. From her work, Diana watches the news, and when she realizes that it is the sign that Paradise Island has been invaded, she immediately decides to go to the Batcave to tell about what has happened and ask for Bruce's help. According to Diana, the Steppenwolf is one of Darkseid's greatest warriors, who intends to gather the 3 mother boxes to alter the Earth until it becomes more like his home planet, and consequently uninhabitable for humans. Wonder Woman then tells how thousands of years ago, the Steppenwolf invaded our planet and tried to use the mother boxes here, but the humans, Atlantis and the Amazons joined forces to fight the evil, defeating the Darkseid army and forcing them to retreat. After the victory, the gods separated the mother boxes and decided to give each one to a different people, to prevent them from gathering the objects and using this power against each other. Thus, one of the boxes was given to the Amazons and kept in Themyscira. Another was given to the Atlantis, who keep it protected, and the third was left to the humans, who, without enough power to protect it, decided to bury the object and keep its location a secret, so that no one alive today knows its location. As soon as Diana finishes telling the story, Alfred finally manages to find Barry Allen's hiding place and asks the woman to go after Victor, who was actually hiding behind the trees listening to the two of them. After a day at work, young Barry comes home to find Bruce sitting in his favorite armchair. Not knowing who he is or what he wants, the young man says it's some kind of mistake and asks the stranger to leave, but Gotham's vigilante notices that the material of his armor is super heat resistant and decides to throw a batarang to test his powers. Thanks to his super speed, Barry is able to make time pass in slow motion and dodge the object with extreme ease, finally realizing that the invader is Batman. As soon as he notices the young man's speed, Bruce tells him that he is putting together a team of superheroes and, extremely excited, Flash accepts before he even knows what they will be fighting against, getting into Batman's car and heading to the secret base. Meanwhile, Diana is analyzing Victor's recordings, but according to Alfred, the computer starts showing instability every time they access the files. At this point, the screen goes all black and someone starts talking to the girl, asking why Bruce is looking for him and revealing that he also knows about the identity of the two. As soon as she sees this, Wonder Woman immediately realizes that she is talking to Victor and asks them to talk in person, but Cyborg is quite suspicious and asks why he should trust her, prompting Diana to argue that if she wanted to hurt him, she would have done so while he was snooping around the lake. Convinced by her, Victor decides to accept and gives her the location of a meeting place, but when she gets there, Victor just says that the mother box is out of reach and turns to leave. Diana then reveals that she wasn't there for that and that they need his abilities, but since the young man says he works better alone, she starts trying to convince him to join forces, causing the cyborg to fly away and leave her talking to herself. In the middle of the ocean, Aquaman finds a fisherman's boat sinking and decides to save the man, taking him to dry land, but when they arrive at the bar, the worker tells them that monsters have fallen from the sky and sunk his ship, going straight to the bottom of the ocean. At first, the superhero thinks that the man is hallucinating and starts to joke about the situation, but when he sees that his hands are stained with greenish blood, he decides to go to Atlantis to see what is going on. Below the surface, the mother box starts to become unstable until a portal opens next to it and the Steppenwolf appears, charging at the guards. Mera, the queen of Atlantis, then uses her powers to try to save her men, but the invader is too strong and manages to knock them all out, throwing them away and going on top of the monarch, throwing her against the wall. At this point, Aquaman finally arrives on the scene and goes straight at the enemy, who throws Mera to the bottom of the ocean and hurls his axe at the superhero. Arthur manages to dodge it easily enough and goes all out on the invader, grabbing him by the horns and landing a knee to the face, But when Aquaman tries to finish him off, the villain manages to parry the blow and throws the hero against one of the ocean's pillars, destroying the structure and giving him the opening he needed to get the mother box and open the portal to escape. With her husband defeated, Mera goes to him and begins to tell him that as king of Atlantis, it is Aquaman's duty to follow the invader to the surface and stop him from completing his plans, but knowing that alone he will not succeed, Arthur will have to ally himself with the Batman. In Gotham, Darkseid's minions break into Victor's house and take away his father, scientist Silas Stone, but because of the alien's appearance, the authorities believe Bruce is responsible for the crime and turn on the bat signal, summoning the Dark Knight for an emergency meeting. As soon as he arrives in Gotham, Bruce sees the sign and goes straight to the meeting point together with his new allies. Not far from there, Victor arrives at his apartment and realizes that his father has been captured, but before he can start acting, he sees the bat signal and decides that he will also go to the rendezvous point, arriving in time to see Diana explaining about the Insectronics and Batman trying to locate the captured victims. With Alfred's help, the new Justice League reaches the underground part of Gotham Harbor, where the Steppenwolf and his soldiers interrogate Silas and the other scientists in search of the mother box. When it is Mr. Stone's turn to undergo interrogation, Victor's robotic body begins to move on its own and shoots the alien invader in the arms, saving his father from a fatal blow. As soon as he sees Cyborg, Wolf realizes he was created by the mother box and begins to admire his modifications. But he ends up losing focus and Wonder Woman takes advantage of the gap to attack the villain, making him go through the walls with the impact. While Cyborg, Diana and Batman fight, Flash takes the opportunity to save the innocents and Alfred sends one of the robots for his master to use in combat, but as soon as Bruce takes command of the machine, the Steppenwolf knocks out Wonder Woman and lands a blow on Alfred's boosters, damaging the robot system and creating a cave in the place. At that moment, Flash reaches them and manages to return Diana's sword, who is being chased by one of the Insectrons. However, Barry ends up tripping and falling to the ground at top speed, but manages to get up in time to save Wonder Woman from being crushed by the Batman's robot. Downstairs, the Steppenwolf goes after the Amazon and tries to finish the fight with one last blow of his axe, but Diana manages to defend herself with her bracelets, creating a shockwave so great that it throws the villain backwards. At this point, Victor comes to them and uses his powers to reactivate the robot and fire at the enemy, but the wolf manages to hold the missile with his bare hands and aims for the tunnel, opening a hole in the wall that causes tons of water to start flooding the place. Seeing the level of strength of the current heroes, the wolf says that the Justice League is weak and is just wasting time, teleporting away and leaving the warriors to drown, but along with the torrent, Aquaman reaches them and manages to stop the advance of the water, giving the cyborg time to use the robot to get everyone out of there. Finally saved, Bruce asks why Arthur changed his mind and he reveals that the box from Atlantis has been taken, meaning that now all that's missing is the cube that was left with the humans. At this point, Cyborg arrives with the mother box and explains that the British found it during World War I, but since they couldn't even date the object, they kept it stored until it activated at the moment Superman was defeated. Curious, the British scientists sent the cube to the laboratory where Silas works, allowing him to develop his research and discover that the box is a perpetual energy matrix that can either create life or extinguish it. When his son was in a car accident, Silas decided to use the powers of the mother box to rebuild Victor's body, enhancing every cell in his body and making him super powerful. When getting to know what the box is capable of, Bruce suggests using it to bring Superman back to life, but Diana thinks this idea is completely absurd and rejects it without thinking twice. However, she accepts it because she is afraid of what Wolf will do when he gets the last cube. To continue with the plan, Victor and Barry break into the cemetery and dig up Superman's body, which, even after all this time, is still completely intact. To bring Clark back to life, they go to Luthor's old facility, where they immerse Clark's body in a special liquid, but since the place doesn't have enough energy to activate the box, Flash offers to run and power the artifact with the Speed Force's electric current. To do this, he takes a good distance and comes running toward the cube, touching the object the moment it comes into contact with the fluid. As soon as the box is energized, Superman awakens from his eternal sleep and causes an explosion that causes his body to be thrown hundreds of feet into the air. When the Kryptonian comes back to the ground, Diana and the others go to check on him, but as Superman analyzes their bodies, Cyborg's defense mechanism eventually activates and fires at Clark, who manages to easily dodge and fight back with his heat vision. Completely out of control, the Kryptonian takes the statue they made in his honor and hurls it at Diana, forcing the Justice League to fight to neutralize Superman. To immobilize him, Diana holds her former companion with the lasso of truth and starts talking to him, trying to make Superman remember who he really is, but this goes wrong and she is captured by Clark, forcing Aquaman and the cyborg to move in to try to help her. With his group at a disadvantage, Flash decides it's time to spring into action and starts running, leaving everything in slow motion so he can save his friends. However, Superman is almost as fast as he is and manages to move freely, pushing the rest of the League away and leaping towards Barry. Even though he is extremely fast, Flash cannot dodge Superman's extremely powerful blows and ends up being knocked out with a simple push. With virtually the entire League defeated, Batman appears and Clark immediately remembers who he is, advancing toward him while blaming him for what has happened. Knowing the danger Bruce is in, Diana stands up and steps in front of Superman, only to receive a headbutt so hard that it sinks her back to the ground. With the way clear, the Kryptonian goes up to Bruce and hits him with a punch so violent it causes him to fly all over a police car. Not satisfied, Clark suspends Batman by the chin while continuing to blame him for everything, saying that Bruce won't let him live or even be eliminated. In an extremely overpowered mode, the Kryptonian begins to smash Batman's jaw while asking if he bleeds, but at that moment, Alfred arrives bringing Lois Lane, which causes Clark to calm down and release Bruce. When touching the woman of his life for the first time after so long, Superman remembers who she is and decides to leave with her to his parents' old house. However, while they spend a moment alone, Wolf manages to track down and take the last box without having to fight anyone. Back at his old home, Clark just wants to relax and take the time to miss his family. However, Lois Lane manages to convince him to help Bruce in the great final battle. In possession of the 3 mother boxes, the Steppenwolf goes to the far north of Russia and causes them to unify, changing the terrain and alerting Cyborg of their location. Wanting revenge, the Justice League gathers together and begin flying towards the enemy as they plan to separate the cubes, but knowing that this mission will not be easy at all, Bruce decides to go ahead and deactivate the energy field so that the rest of the group can enter. To do this, he opens a breach in the enemy defenses with his ship and invades the territory by himself, making the vehicle assume the shape of the Batmobile and activating the high-frequency sound to lure the insects out of the city. But this does not work very well and the aliens manage to catch up with him, destroying the vehicle with their bare hands. Taking advantage of the breach Bruce gave, the rest of the League enters the city and go to help the Gotham vigilante, completely ignoring the plan of facing Wolf and leaving him behind. With the help of his trident and cyborg, Aquaman manages to eliminate several of the insects, leaving Diana's path clear to face the enemy and avenge the attack on the island of the Amazons. While Wolf is distracted, Flash takes Cyborg to the unified boxes and eliminates the approaching Insectrons, giving Victor time to try to separate the cubes, but when he is almost done, Darkseid's Herald manages to defeat Diana and Aquaman at once and goes after the cyborg, lifting him by the neck. To save her companion, Diana lands a super powerful blow on her shield, releasing a shockwave so strong it throws everyone to the first floor. Since his focus is the cubes, Cyborg starts flying back to the floor where he was and Wolf goes after him. But Diana manages to lasso him and, with Aquaman's help, pull him back to the first floor. Still, the two are no match for the villain who manages to throw them away, forcing Wonder Woman to save Aquaman from being buried by the rubble. With the way clear, Wolf goes to Cyborg and says he isn't worthy of touching the box while he shoves his axe into his shoulders. But as Victor doesn't let go of the object, the villain grabs him by the neck once more and pulls the hero's legs off. At that moment, everyone's hope starts to vanish while Wolf says they are weak. However, Superman appears behind him and starts to say that hope is eternal, throwing a supreme punch that smashes the villain against the wall. As Clark mashes up the alien, Alfred tells him that there are civilians trying to escape the city, but that because of the effects of the unified box, they will not be able to escape in time. To avoid casualties, Batman orders Flash to run to the family and help them escape. Only Superman can also hear the calls for help thanks to his super hearing and decides that he will also save the civilians, leaving Aquaman and Diana to delay the enemy. At this point, Superman catches up with Flash and takes it upon himself to rescue everyone to his right. But while Flash can only push one family's car away, Clark carries an entire building with one arm, saving hundreds of innocents at once. With the rescue mission completed, Superman returns to the fight and manages to knock out Wolf with a single blow, giving the gap that Cyborg needed to separate the mother boxes. At this moment, Flash finally arrives at the place and calls them to see what is happening outside, but before he can say anything else, Wolf regains consciousness and throws Barry against a pillar. This time, the League is more prepared and Aquaman manages to throw him backwards, as well as pierce the invader's chest with his trident. Superman then freezes Wolf's axe and Diana shatters the object with her own hands, destroying the weapon that took her sister's lives. With defeat imminent, the Steppenwolf begins to feel fear, causing the Insectonians to sniff out the dread and turn against the former leader, beginning to devour him while he is still alive and forcing the villain to open a portal to flee the Earth. With that, the Justice League is officially formed and they watch together as the Mother Boxes make life come alive again amidst the post-apocalyptic scenario. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, please like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.